it's Ruth Marie Hamilton. Today I'm going to be reading to you from my mum's book, The Britwistles Win a Prize. Let us begin. It was a still day and the smoke coming up from the chimney of a wooden house with a deep veranda lifted up lazily. The back door opened and a small elderly woman hobbled down the steps over to a woodshed propped up against a bigger shed. "What are you doing, Alfred?" she said, leaning back and staring at an elderly man on a ladder. "I'm putting up a windmill on the workshop. This is the best spot to catch the wind." "I can see that. I'm talking about the reindeer antlers you're wearing. Christmas is a long way off." "These?" Alfred adjusted the headband on his bald head. "Of course I mean those. I'm just having fun with our neighbour." Myrtle shifted her gaze to the brick house over the fence. "What do you mean? We have been here 2 weeks and not laid eyes on our neighbour." "We may not have laid eyes on the neighbour, but trust me, the neighbour is watching, always watching." "Oh, Alfred, how can you say such a thing?" "Look at the window opposite us." "I am looking." "Right at the bottom of the curtain, you will see 2 black rings." Myrtle slid her glasses down her nose a little and peered over the top of the rings. "Do you see them?" "I think so. I saw something at the bottom of the curtain, but whatever it was, it's gone now." Alfred continued screwing the windmill to the roof of the shed. "Those, my dear, are binoculars." Myrtle hastily smoothed the apron around her waist and tucked a stray of grey hair into the bun on the top of her head. "Oh, Alfred, I don't like the feeling of being on show. What an awful neighbour. Do you think we've done the wrong thing buying this house?" Alfred took a screw out of his pocket and slotted it into a hole in the windmill's frame. "Don't be silly, Myrtle," he said, twisting his screwdriver vigorously. "We have waited a long time to find a place like this. It's hard to find a house with an orchard and a wood stove these days." Myrtle thought about the big black range in the kitchen and smiled. "It bakes beautifully, and the garden is perfect for the grandchildren. I guess a nosy neighbour is a small price to pay." "It'll be fun. I love a sneaking nosy neighbour. I hope to have the doorbell on before she comes calling." The smile disappeared from Myrtle's face and she put her hands on her hips. "You are not to put the whistle on the front door of this house, Alfred." Alfred's vigorous arm movement stopped. "But I made it myself, and the new house won't feel like home without it," he said in a peeved tone. "I don't care." The ladder wobbled as Alfred swiveled to look at Myrtle better. "Watch out!" shouted Myrtle, clutching at the sides of it. "You'll fall if you're not careful." Alfred poked his head through the rungs and looked down at his wife. "What is the point of having a name like Britwhistle if I can't have a whistle instead of a doorbell? Besides," he added mischievously, "it's lots of fun." Myrtle twisted her head around the side of the ladder and looked up at her husband with a stern face. "Now that is exactly the attitude that I am afraid of, Alfred Henry. You're too old for all these pranks. Remember what happened at the last house?" "It's only a little whistle." "It is not a little whistle. It is a great whopping train whistle, as you well know, and it is not nice how you unleash that hideous shriek on people when they least expect it. You are not to put it on the door of this house. When you're in this area, I want to make friends, not enemies." "It's only a bit of fun." "Might be for you, and occasionally a few others," admitted Myrtle, suppressing a smile. "But it is the sort of fun that ends in tears. Remember the lady who fell off the porch?" Alfred's shoulders slumped. He felt bad about that incident, as he was a very kind old man. "What if I promise not to pull the string when people aren't looking?" Myrtle's face and voice softened. "No, dear, a noise like that is disastrous for a person with a weak bladder. I don't want another vicar embarrassed like the last one. It was lucky your trousers fitted him. We had to give a big donation to the church organ to make up for that." Alfred sighed deeply, and even the bells on his antlers seemed to droop. "I still say, anyone with a name like Britwhistle ought to have a whistle instead of a doorbell," he said in a small voice. "I'll tell you what, Alfie. How about a compromise? We will call the house Toot Cottage, and you can mount your whistle out here on the side of the shed. You make such a noise in your workshop. I need something loud to get your attention." It was suddenly very silent in the garden. The only sound was the purring of an enormous orange cat who was rubbing himself around Myrtle's legs. At last Alfie spoke. "Oh, all right," he said. Myrtle beamed. Good on you, dear. I know that wasn't easy. Alfred picked up his screwdriver and turned his attention back to his windmill while Myrtle's thoughts shifted to the window opposite them. The black rings at the bottom of the curtain were there again. Alfie, will we ever meet the neighbour face to face? Sure we will. Curiosity will drive her to our door. You seem very certain the neighbour is a woman. Don't you remember the real estate agent told us the only neighbour was the woman next door? Myrtle tickled the cat's head. Oh, that's right, she said, remembering the conversation. If she's nosy enough to spy on us, I suppose she'll want to see what our furniture is like. Alfred gave a final twist to the last screw and wriggled the windmill to make sure it was firm. She already knows that, he said, climbing down the ladder. I saw her watching from behind the curtain in the front room when the men were unloading the removal truck. But she will want to know where you put everything, and that is hard to find out from behind a curtain. Myrtle looked down the garden path at the small tin shed in the distance and giggled. I wonder what she thought the composting toilet was, she said. Alfred, reaching the bottom of the ladder, gave a snort of laughter. And all my tools and laboratory equipment. His eyes gleamed. I shall tell her that I am building a nuclear power station. Myrtle gave her husband a friendly little punch on the shoulder. You're a naughty man. Alfred's face radiated innocence as he opened his blue eyes wide. I have no idea what you're talking about, Myrtle. Oh, yes, you do, she chuckled. The cat yawned and stretched. Do you think Mama Duke should be outside? Said Alfred, stroking the enormous cat. We don't want to lose him. I think so, said Myrtle. I butted his paws and the vet said 2 weeks was long enough to keep him inside. While they watched, the cat wandered over to a nearby tree, sniffed the trunk and sprayed the surrounding grass. I expect he wants to mark out his territory, said Alfred. He looked at the cat with pride. I wouldn't like to be a cat and come up against Marmaduke. Myrtle frowned as she bent over and picked up an armload of firewood. I hope the neighbour doesn't have a cat. If Marmaduke bashes it up, we'll be in trouble. Alfred took the antlers off, and while his wife's back was still turned, popped them on her head. You worry too much, Myrtle Turtle. The neighbour does not have a cat. But he was wrong. The neighbour did have a cat. And that's all for today. Bye-bye.